ESN TV coverage of the 12th Annual Consortium for School Networking Conference is sponsored by Smart Technologies, N Computing, and CCC Video on Demand, in cooperation with Cable in the Classroom and Consortium for School Networking.
I'm here at the Consortium for School Networking's 12th Annual Conference in San Francisco, where school district CIOs are exploring new ways of using technology to improve learning. At the opening general session, conference attendees learned of two creative strategies for personalizing instruction for students. Imagine a continuum from simple to complex, on which we put the activities of sleeping, eating, and bonding. That was how moderator Chris Deedy of Harvard University began the opening general session on individualized instruction. Sleeping, Deedy said, is a relatively easy task whose successful outcome depends on only a few variables. Bonding, on the other hand, is quite complex. And as for learning?
We treat learning as if it were like sleeping. But everything that we know about learning suggests that it's like bonding, or at worst, eating. And yet the very best of our educational settings has less variety than a bad fast food restaurant.
Deedy introduced two speakers who highlighted two very different projects aimed at personalizing instruction. Jean Johnson is the project director for NotSchool.net, a UK-based international online community that offers an alternative to traditional education for students who, for a variety of reasons, can no longer cope with school.
We know that the dropouts cost society here over $200,000 a year. Back in the UK, we're talking about £250,000. That's more than double. So we have a serious economic problem. Now, way back in 2000, I was faced with a challenge by some government ministers, that what could we do to try and organise learning for these kids. And the challenge there was, if you can't take the kids to the learning, you take the learning to the kids and the learning to their families. We're asynchronous, so kids work where they want to work. They're distributed, they learn where they like, and there's absolutely no pressure on them at all. It is absolutely not school. We are the antithesis of everything that school might mean to these young people. Now, you might find that strange, but actually, if you're working with a bunch of kids who are completely disengaged and won't go to school, who are never ever there, you've got to do something, in my view. It's a social responsibility. We have something like 118 areas of content, and I guess about 80 odd of those are worked by kids, delivered by kids, managed by kids. They devised and defined their own curriculum. Their desktop might look different from my desktop, would look different from your desktop, would look different today, tomorrow and the next day. We have total ownership. They have total ownership.
Of course, most educational systems have to operate under more traditional constraints. Virginia's Fairfax County Public Schools, the nation's 12th largest school system, is working to create individualized learning plans for every student, Superintendent Jack Dale told attendees.
We believe that each child is important and entitled to the opportunity to realize his or her full potential. High expectations do, in fact, promote high achievement. We believe effective teachers are essential to the student's success. Learning occurs best when instruction is tailored to individual needs.
One of the main reasons kids drop out of school is they feel no sense of ownership of their education. But ceding some control over the process to students has its dangers, Deedy noted. He asked the two participants how they strike the proper balance between letting students control their learning and shaping it for them.
I really don't have a problem with that. I think the whole point is these kids that we work with have already voted with their feet and nothing else will work. So they can't join the project unless everything else has failed. So they can't be forced to learn. And in fact, there's an awful lot of research that talks about not being able to force young people to force anybody to learn anything they don't want to learn. But my philosophy is that everybody wants to learn. So actually the starting point is, what do you want to learn and where can we go from here? And you can build on that. And once the self-esteem, which is very often what it's all about, is built, like the child that's talking to the founder of the web about programming, once he actually says, wow, I've got something to offer, that's such a powerful model And then you can build on it, because child suddenly says, but actually I need to get there, and to get to there I've got to learn something else, and suddenly it actually takes on shape and meaning, and you can develop those concepts. We might not be using the educational and philosophical language that you and I might use, but they are learning.
We're at the stage where we're trying to develop that through our individual learning plan. I think what's interesting is you've had the advantage of selecting kids and faculty who have to have that core philosophy and core belief, otherwise you aren't part of the program. And when we have a large system with 163,000 kids, what we're about now is to try to teach the power of that to all of our children through the individual learning plan. And it's very much in the infancy and developmental stages, and we have people balking and saying, well, maybe this isn't the right way to go, but fundamentally we believe it is. Now the question is, how can we build that kind of capacity and ownership and empowerment in our kids, and teach our kids how important that is, even those who don't yet have issue with it, if you will.
In a question and answer session with members of the audience, one attendee asked what evidence of success the Not Schools program has.
We have something like 65% going on to college, getting college places. About 10% go to university, end up in higher ed. All bar about 10% go into some form of lifelong learning. We have about 8% looking for work, and that's now from last June. And I would say by the summer we'll have probably cracked most of those. About 2% we can't deal with, and those 2% might be at Her Majesty's pleasure for a while, or they might perhaps be somebody who is in such difficult circumstances at home that they actually can't go on and do any form of lifelong learning. So we're very, very successful, but it isn't just about what we do on Not School, it's about a lot of hard work from individuals working with those kids to find them a suitable destination and support them in getting there.
In closing, Dee Dee said that though most school leaders recognize the importance of individualized instruction, they face significant political and cultural hurdles to making it happen.
I had invested a lot of time and effort in working with a suburban district, a large suburban district, I won't name them, trying to interest them in a curriculum that we've developed over 7 years with National Science Foundation funding that we think is quite sophisticated about 21st century skills, and that also has a track record of working well with students getting D's and F's, as well with students getting A's and B's. And they sent a list of reasons why they weren't going to adopt the curriculum. And I thought the reasons given were very diagnostic about where we stand politically with this whole issue. First, they said, well, disease really isn't part of the state's curriculum standards anymore. So we basically have taken it out of the curriculum except for a couple days where we talk about HIV and sexually transmitted diseases. And I'm thinking, okay, so like lemmings, we're marching off the cliff of whatever the state curriculum standards happen to be. And what happens to all the kids pre-college who might be interested in the medical field and who find that there's nothing in the curriculum about diseases? And the other reason that really struck me is they said, well, this takes time. And we think we can teach the same stuff much faster through direct instruction. And I'm thinking, well, sure, if you'll accept a 50% dropout rate, you can teach the same stuff much faster through direct instruction. But is that the goal? Is throwing away that much human talent the goal? And so I think as we look at these models for individualization and we ask how we make them both separate models that are last resorts, but also mainstream models that allow us to individualize within conventional instruction. How do we overcome the political and cultural barriers that we're going to face? Because those are truly profound, and technology can only take us part of the way.